Hi everyone, welcome to the Abuse on Men channel. I'm here with Hattie, who reached out to me on the channel, and we basically after some conversations, we thought it'd be great to make a video or a set of videos, which were comparing the abuse on men versus the experience that women face as well from abuse on women. I said that right. It sounded weird. So we basically created 3 videos, or we're making 3 videos. The first is basically about getting in, so how it was to get into an abusive relationship. Second video will be about how we, or what it was like staying in the relationship and why we stayed, and what kept us on side. And the third video is about getting out, and how we did it and the recovery, and then some conclusions. So we hope this can help people understand the relate to the experiences and give them what would you say? I suppose education and encouragement, and to help people and to inspire people to get out of this, or if you see other people in it, to help them as well. And we thought the comparison could be a really interesting way of exploring the topics. So welcome, Hattie.
Thanks, Nick.
So perhaps I think, you know, I'll do an intro of me, but perhaps we can also start with the intro of you first. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your experience in a couple of minutes?
Sure. So my experience happened about 3 years ago. I was living abroad, and the whole experience was quite short, and it did turn my life upside down. I got into what I thought was a relationship. I thought I'd met my guy, never felt like this before. And over the course of about 5 months, we got to the point of deciding we were going to get married, and it was all very fast, as we'll discuss. That's a very typical sign of an abusive relationship. And it was pure chance that I got out so early, because I took a trip home, and during that trip, the patterns of his behavior started becoming more obvious. And it was actually through listening to a story being told by a victim of abuse online, which I had heard, that actually saved me and got me out, because I realized the patterns of what was happening matched up so identically with her experience of a relationship that turned out to be quite horrifying. And so I had an experience of looking back over what I thought was a love affair and seeing it for what it really was. And I think this is quite unusual that I had that opportunity to have that realization whilst in the early stages. But once I pulled at a thread, everything came crashing down. And yes, I mean, I left everything that I built in that country and had to come home because he was frightening. So, but that was 3 years ago, and yeah, I am fully kind of emotionally recovered, and I'm interested to tell my story to help others spot the signs of this kind of relationship starting.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks. Thanks for sharing that. It's very lucky to like have that realization as early on, like you say.
Yeah.
I mean, perhaps I'll go into just a short intro for me, and then we can get into sort of the introductions of getting in. So I was in, for those that don't know or don't follow the channel, I was in an abusive relationship for just under 2 years. It started off very much like Hattie, like being the girl of my dreams, or the person of my dreams in a way. Everything was great. I think we got into our first fight at 1 month, and I thought it was completely ridiculous. But as the time went on, the abuse, I would say after 6 months, I was aware of it. But it really escalated dramatically after a year, to the point where I couldn't say anything, I couldn't do anything, and I literally said nothing out of fear that everything I said would be used against me. And I was able to get out of it, simply because it got to the point where I couldn't break up with her, and luckily she ended it with me. But we'll go into that in more detail. So shall we start with feelings of how we felt early on, and perhaps when we first started to realize things weren't quite what they were?
Yeah, yeah, I'm really interested to hear this comparison, because I've thought so much about these early days, because honestly, I lived that whole relationship until the point of realization, thinking that I was in love and this was my guy. But it started off, I think looking back, it was a kind of setup how we met. I believe he set up our meeting and made it look like something else. He came to talk to me about a jewelry project. I make jewelry. The project never materialized, and I realize now that that was just a way to meet me. I think we had a couple of friends in common, and I think as soon as we met, I was interested in him, very interested, because he was a very unusual person, and I've learnt my lesson now, but I do like unusual people, but I'm always attracted to unusual people. And I think he felt that interest as soon as we met, and he decided quite quickly that I was going to be his kind of target. Yes, so that interest, he did, gosh, it's hard to not go into too much detail, because I know we have 20 minutes, we want to keep this quite tight. But he led me to believe, he kind of showed mutual interest in me to an extreme degree. He left the country to go on a business trip, and during that trip he contacted me to say he's actually going to come home early because he missed me. And looking back, I now know that he never left the country. That was fabricated. It's a very clever thing to do, because it makes you feel very special. And I was already interested in him. He came across as very intelligent, very kind of modest and in control of his life. All things that I found attractive. And
just to pause you there, in terms of comparisons and things.
Yes.
With my ex, or my abuser, she was also very intelligent, super intelligent, and she was in one of the professions. I don't want to give too much away, but like the accountants, lawyers, architects kind of thing. And I really like that about her, in exactly the same way that she was established, she had a direction, she had a goal, she was intelligent. So yeah.
Can I ask, was that verified? Did you know for a fact that that career path was as she said it was?
Yeah, it was, because I used to drop her at her offices and pick her up. So I can't imagine she would be going to different places.
Well,
I mean, she showed me her project, her university project that had a lot of that stuff in it. So I don't.
Did you meet her colleagues?
I did meet one of her colleagues, yeah.
Just one in 2 years.
I didn't meet many of her friends, yes.
Let's pull at that thread, Nick. Pull at it. But it's interesting. I mean, I think what I was dealing with was someone, he was deep down a fraud, and therefore that's, I don't know how the abuse would have played out exactly, but everything he said, his personality was a lie. I just want to ask, I'm going to talk quickly about one of the early signs. And it sounds like a joke. It sounds like something out of a film, but there is something that I have read about as being the psychopathic stare. And it sounds like a joke, but I actually remember calling my mum, crying early on after I met this guy, saying, I've met this man, I am so interested in him, but he won't stop staring at me. And he came to join me at a fair where I was selling jewelry. And he stood kind of behind the stall with me, but was staring at me the whole time. And it wasn't an intimidating stare, it wasn't a romantic stare, but he was watching me. And in the end, I said to him, please, this is too intense. Like, please, can you go away and do something else, and I'll see you later. And he would go away, be very obedient. He would do that, go away. And 15 minutes later, I would turn around and he was back staring at me. And this stare is a sign. It is a common sign of a predator learning about his victim. And he got me. He got me from watching me. I don't know if, because he molded himself very much to what I was looking for in a partner. Do you feel that your abuser did that in the early stages as well? Was she carefully working you out?
Carefully working me out. I'm not sure, but what I can say from my side is I remember going on the first date, and I remember her turning up, telling me some story about her family and how she got into an argument with her mum and that she was upset. And I was very interested in her, just the way she looked, and I was attracted to her, I guess, is what I'm saying. And because it was from a dating app. So, sometimes people turn up and then they're not quite who they look like. And it was nice to go out with someone that was nice looking. And then I just was very relaxed and just talking about stories, about all sorts of things. And I remember being very just jokey, and I know I had a good time. But I do remember her being a bit out of it. And I remember talking about it afterwards, and her telling me, months later, and her telling me that she didn't really remember much of the first day. I suppose what I'm getting to is she came with a story of being upset, and my job was to cheer her up. And basically, it's what I've learned is breadcrumbing, where someone puts out lots of breadcrumbs of all different things that are problematic. I had an argument with my friends. I had an argument with my work colleagues. My house is problematic, and they want people to help them. And in this regard, I definitely remember the thing with her mum, that she had an argument with her, and my job was to help cheer her up in that occasion and give her some thoughts and advice and etc. And as I think the first few months went on, it was, and actually throughout the relationship, it was very much my job was to help her and to save her and to give her advice on things. And I think that, like you say, in terms of the predator side on the guy's side, from the girl's side, it felt like she was just trying to find someone that was just going to help her and help her and help her and see how far she can push that. And that's the person that would feed that abusive energy that she needed.
I would love to know whether this tactic, I mean, it sounds like breadcrumbing is like a term that you've heard. Where did you read about that?
So there's a YouTube psychologist called or psychiatrist called Dr. Ramani, and she has some fantastic videos, content around all of this. I don't think it's men or women specific, but she does talk about it there.
And what context does she talk about it? Within abusive relationships in general?
Yes.
Yeah.
Narcissistic, correct.
Right. Okay, it's really fascinating, because I would say that my experience was almost the opposite, as we discussed before. I think like he was like my hero, like, and I didn't even know that I needed a hero, but he was there to help me with everything. Looking back, actually, everything that was not too burdensome for him. I remember moving out of my flat because we were going to move in together when I got back from my trip, and this was all driven by what he wanted. But somehow I was left to move my entire flat into storage completely on my own. So while he was always popping up, always there to like bring me food or like take me somewhere simple for him, when it came to hard work, he vanished. It's just interesting. Yeah.
Did you? When did you start realizing that things were not quite right? Because, and we talk about the good times, and it was maybe love bombing or lots of compliments and saving, being nice and great and the best person ever. But when did you start realizing things were not quite? Things were a little bit off.
Well, it's complicated with this guy because he was a very unusual person. He didn't blend in. He seemed odd, and I knew a lot of my friends didn't like him, which in hindsight, I will remember that. He told me he had Asperger syndrome, which I believe is, from doing more reading about it, I think quite often people with antisocial personality tendencies are often diagnosed with Asperger's or autism, and they are completely opposite things. Like he was a fraud, and he lied and played me and lied about every aspect of his life. And people with autism cannot do that. That's what they're missing. They can't play those social games. So he absolutely did not have autism, but he hid behind this, everything odd about him. And there was plenty of odd behavior. He put in that autism box, and he would talk about it a lot, and he would want to be identified as autistic. So, for example, he was icy cold around my friends when we were in public. And then with me, he was a totally different person. And to be honest, that played on my, I liked feeling like he could only be himself with me. And that's what he would say. And then as soon as we were with my friends, he would like disappear into this icy shell. And actually that was probably more like the real him, because he just didn't like people. And he saw me as like a plaything, where he turned it on. So yes, there were warning signs throughout our relationship. I just thought it was because he had autism. And it was only when I discovered the lies, it was quite a kind of blow up discovery. I discovered all these lies and then realized he can't be autistic, because autistic people can't do that. The main thing I just want to say, that looking back, I would never brush over ever again, is not being able to take criticism. So whenever we had a conversation, he perceived I was criticizing him. The anger inside him, he was visible, and he would turn the conversation around so that he became a victim. And I might be talking about his job and like how he was a chef, and how someone wanted a bigger portion, and maybe he should make his portions a bit bigger. And suddenly we were talking about how hard life was for him and how I shouldn't criticize him because life is so difficult for him. And that pattern of becoming a victim for no reason, and not being able to accept very small criticism, that is a really enormous warning sign that I would never ignore again. So yeah, are any of those signs similar to what you experienced?
Yeah, I just actually wrote down some of the things that came into my head while you were talking. So I think the first thing was my friends met her quite early on, and they all loved her. She was the life and the soul of the party. Um, she could talk to everyone for any period of time. People I couldn't even like stand talking to. She would like get on really well with them. And it was amazing to watch, actually, to see someone just be so friendly and at ease with everyone I knew so quickly. Everyone that I know said, "Oh, we wish we had a relationship like that. That's the dream relationship." Um, and um, and I think the other thing you touched on was this kind of like hard luck story. And my abuser had a big hard luck story that focused around money, which was basically, and this is probably the first time I wouldn't say I realized, but I should have realized that something wasn't right, was that we went out for dinner. I think it was maybe, I don't know, we've been dating for 2 or 3 weeks, I think. We by the way, we've been seeing each other something like 20 times in the first 22 days, which is in itself a huge problem.
Very similar, yeah.
Right. Doesn't give you time to think.
Exactly.
And so I said to her, look, I'm just curious, how come you never offer to pay? I feel like I'm always paying for everything. And she burst into tears on the spot, and literally wouldn't say anything for about 10, 15 minutes. And then basically was saying, I don't know if it was in that moment, but certainly she said she was very upset I spoke about it. She eventually told me that some guy that she worked with before had basically put money in, had run away with clients' money. It had all been put into her name, and then she didn't have a penny. Basically, the courts were after her. She had to leave the country. She came back to face the courts. She owed like tens of thousands of dollars, and she'd been paying it off ever since for 5, 6, 7 years. And she doesn't have any money. She's in a lot of debt, and she was taken advantage of by this guy that was her business partner, and every other boyfriend she had would understand that and would not ask her to pay for anything. And I embarrassed her so much, and how could I do that? And if it's a problem, we should end it right now. And she never wants to hear about it again. So that was a big thing with the. And then she would say that I had the problem with money, that I couldn't, that it was always in the back of my mind when I was buying everything, and that I should see someone to deal with that problem.
It's interesting how I'm always wondering about the comparison, because I think in my case it was a very typical story about the money story. For him was the opposite, and I think this is a very typical way that male abusers, fraudulent abusers, they pretend they've got a lot of money, and I wonder. It's rather in a way it's depressing, but I don't find it that depressing that maybe these patterns that abusers use are making the most of these social stereotypes. Whereas, because if a man had told me, if I was with a man who said, "Oh, I'm in so much debt," that wouldn't be a story that would pull me in, that would be like, okay, like, you know, that wouldn't be a good tool to manipulate me. Maybe because I'm a woman and men's power comes with having money, and he knew that. And for you, she wants to create this idea that you could be her savior, which appeals to you as a man. I wonder about these stories, and I'd love to hear more stories from men and their abusers to see if this is common, because I know my story is like a playbook.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. How would you say? You know, just coming back to a different point with the friends thing, and I think when you spoke about you know, he was only showing that side to you. For me, I was always thinking, why do my friends get all of the nice thing and I get the shit, basically? And it was always my friends telling me, no, she's such a lovely girl, you've done really well. And, you know, all of these problems that I would be saying, they would say, well, you know, she's trying to work it out, seeing a therapist. She, you know, this is so normal, but you know, if you know, don't know, I felt no one was saying this is a bad idea. No one was saying this is you know, this is a huge problem here.
I wonder though that experience is different between us only because of time. Like, I know what was coming for me. It's a cycle. From what I've read, it's always a cycle. So I actually got out while he was still building me up. He was like raising me high, and I'd never felt better. And they always drag you down. They always take you off that pedestal. And I wonder if your cycle, well, you were with her for 2 years, so it's more likely that you got to the point where she was taking you down, whereas I never got there.
Yeah.
Very luckily, yeah.
Yeah, true.
I mean, you said that within 6 months you knew something was off, but obviously at the beginning she was very nice to you.
Yeah, well, so the first month it was good. Then I realised we were having an argument once a month.
Right.
From that point onwards, over nothing. And I remember the first time it was in her car, and it was about 20-minute drive from her family's back to my flat. And I just thought, what is this about? And I remember it going in a circular way, round and around and around. I remember thinking, yeah, this is almost laughable, and you know, I'm just going to pretend it never happened because it's so stupid. You know, she can't possibly think like this, and that was a feature of the arguments, that they become very circular, and couldn't escape them. But I do remember, even at 6 months, she wanted us to do something, like make something or write something to celebrate 6 months, some over the top kind of thing. And she made this photo thing when we with like an album kind of thing with the months on it, like something, a memory or a photo celebrating each month. And I basically wrote like a little bit of poems or something because I couldn't think of what to do. And I remember I wrote one about the problems that we had. I mean, it was, I probably have it here, but it was so obvious, even from, I'm going to see if I can find it real quick, because it was so obvious from that moment, when I read back on it. Let me just see if I can find it. 1 second.
What was her reaction to the poem?
Let's see. Where are we? Here, I actually called it Weekly Fight. That's and I wrote this. I wrote, I don't understand. What are you saying? Wait just a minute. Is it always on Thursday? Why on this day? What could it be? Maybe it's because she missed me this week. Why does he do it? I don't understand. I'm getting so mad now. Hulk is angry. Hulk is sad.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
What did she say to this poem?
I didn't read it to her. I felt embarrassed to read it to her.
Oh, so she never read it, but you wrote it. Oh my
Yes.
God. Did you read it back and you were like,
And
oh my God, that's really intense.
yeah, and that was at 6 months.
Hulk is.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. There's quite a record of being in the middle of something like that.
And it clearly shows that at 6 months, we were having what seemed a weekly fight every week. And for whatever reason, I was okay with that.
Just, I think this leads us really nicely to like the final, like in a way, something that kind of seeps through everything, and the reasons why you look back on that and you're like, why was that okay? And it is something I think we both felt, which is this weird brainwashing, this this trance that I certainly felt. I was under some kind of spell, and I think you put it like that. And I'm so fascinated as to how they do this. I truly felt, I don't know if you felt the same, I felt in those early, until I found out he was a fraud, I really felt like things, because we had arguments as well that were odd and I couldn't understand. And my feeling was, when he knows how much I love him, like this will go away. Like he just needs to know that he's safe with me and that I love him. And like I literally felt like I will be with him forever, and no matter how hard it is. And that's such a dangerous position to be in, and one I'd never been in before. I'd never felt like that before, like that kind of certainty, that utter certainty. Did you have that?
Sorry, certainty that
He was for me and I was for him.
Yeah, I definitely. And actually, that's one of the things that even haunts me to this day is, those special moments that we had, the exaggerated happiness. I almost feel like I miss it for sure, and I almost feel like I'd never have it with anyone else. And I felt so much love, so much affection, so much. Just it just felt great being around her when she was so when she was nice. And that's why I stayed, because I wanted to be with that person. And I remember in my head the thinking was, well, look, maybe she's nice 50% of the time. Maybe in time I can help her, and she's seeing a therapist anyway. The therapist was the biggest thing keeping me in that relationship, because I felt like she was at least trying to solve herself. So I lost my train of thought, but it was I wanted to. I thought, if every few months we can increase it from 50% to 60%, 60 to 70, and maybe at some point we get to 100% and she'll be fixed. But the reality is these people can't be fixed, or it's very difficult. There's no guarantee for sure. And actually, as the relationship went on, I remember thinking, I don't want to be the person that got all the tough times, and we break up, and the next person comes along and gets the perfect girlfriend that I was hoping for so much.
Yeah, and it's like a kind of, I found it almost supernatural, that spell, that ability that he had to present this ideal, this thing I didn't even know myself that I wanted, and he knew me, he knew what I wanted. And yeah, I wish I knew, because it's so unlike a normal healthy love. It's more like a kind of drug love, I think. Like it's triggered by very specific things that turn out to be very meaningless and this deep. But I totally understand what you're saying. Like I actually now have got to a point where I hope I don't ever feel that again, because it would, like when I got out of it, I remember thinking one of the only ways that I could tell if this is happening again is if I feel those things again, because they were so odd and so wonderful, but so odd, and that's quite sad. But at the same time, I think there's healthy love out there that is much better and more real. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we should leave it there.
Yeah.
Because I think we're borderlining on the second video anyway at the moment.
Yeah.
But everyone who's watching, feel free to post in the comments what you think, what your experience is, or not, and hope this gives some help and support for those that need it, and can see similarities and or know what to avoid. So thank you very much, Hattie, and we'll be online for the next video at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah. Great. Thanks.
Thank
Bye.
Bye.